When my own daughter told me I was only good for paying her bills, I hung up mid-call. But that wasn't all. The following Christmas, when she called in a panic because her apartment was being foreclosed on, I simply let it ring. And that's when she discovered what happens when you treat your father like a personal bank. You won't believe what she did next. And even less what I did. My name is Robert. I'm 58 years old. And for a long time I thought being a good father meant saying yes to everything. It meant opening my wallet whenever my daughter Jessica called with an emergency. It meant swallowing disrespect, because after all, family is family, right? Wrong. Completely wrong. For 15 years, ever since Jessica left home at 18, I was her plan B. No, actually I was plan A, B, C, and D. Whenever her life fell apart, whenever the money ran out, whenever she made a bad decision and needed someone to clean up the mess, she called, and I ran. Like a complete idiot, I always ran. Dad, I need help with the rent this month. Dad, the car broke down and I don't have money for the repairs. Dad, I lost my job. Can you help me until I get organized? For 15 years, that was practically our entire relationship. I paid, she received. I gave, she took. And when she didn't need money, total silence. Christmas, birthdays, Father's Day, I spent them alone. Sorry, Dad, I'm very busy. Sorry, Dad, I already have plans. Sorry, Dad, maybe next year. Always an excuse, always an empty promise that next year would be different. And as stupid as I was, I believed it. I always believed it. But it was last Christmas that everything changed. That's when I finally opened my eyes and saw what my daughter really thought of me. And that's when I decided that Robert, Jessica's personal bank, had permanently closed down. If you've ever been used by a family member, if you've ever been treated like an ATM with feelings, this story is for you. Because I learned the hard way that true love has to be reciprocal. And when it isn't, you have to have the courage to press the reset button. Remember this phrase: there is no such thing as one-way love, because it will make perfect sense in what's coming next. If you've ever been through something similar, if you've ever been treated like a personal bank by your own family, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because stories like this show that you're not alone in this struggle. And leave a like if you agree that respect has to be reciprocal, even within family. Now I'm going to tell you exactly how it all started. It was December 23rd when my phone rang for the third time that day. Jessica again. I even considered not answering, but that voice in my head, the same idiotic voice that always spoke louder, said, "What if it's a real emergency this time?" "Hi, Dad." Her voice sounded different, colder, more calculated. "I need to talk to you about something important." My heart even raced a little. After months without real conversation, I thought, finally she wants to see me at Christmas. What an idiot I was. "Of course, honey. Do you want me to come over or will you come to my house?" Actually, it's really about money. That was it. Any hope I still had died right there. I'm in a really complicated situation. The apartment I rent is 3 months behind on rent, and the landlord is threatening to take me to court. 3 months. She hadn't paid rent for 3 months, and only now was she calling me. Only when the situation was truly desperate. "Jessica, why didn't you contact me sooner? 3 months is a long time to be accumulating debt." "Oh, Dad, because I knew you were going to judge me, asking questions. I tried to solve it on my own, but it didn't work. I need $5,000. Urgently. $5,000. As if it were $5. As if I were a money printing machine. Daughter, $5,000 is not a small amount of money. And I don't even know exactly how your life is going, your work, your plans. You haven't told me anything for months." That's when she said the phrase that changed everything between us. The phrase that made me see exactly what I was to her. "Dad, look, you're my father, right? That's your job. To take care of me. To help me when I need it. This isn't the time for questions. I need the money today. Otherwise, I'll be evicted tomorrow. My role. She had reduced 28 years of paternal love, sacrifice, and care to a function. I was an employee in her life. An employee who existed to solve financial problems and disappear until the next emergency. Jessica. I tried to keep my voice calm, but inside I was burning. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? Dad, what's all this talk about? You're okay. I know you're okay. What matters now is that I need help. That's when I broke down. That's when I realized that to my own daughter, I wasn't a person. I was a resource. A source of money that was only valuable when she needed it. You know what, Jessica? I'll think about what you said. What do you mean, think? Dad, I told you it's urgent. And I said I'll think about it. Good night. And I hung up the phone. For the first time in 15 years, I hung up the phone on my daughter. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat there in the kitchen, drinking coffee and remembering every time I'd been called in to sort out Jessica's life. And the more I remembered, the angrier I became. I grabbed a sheet of paper and started writing things down. Every emergency, every amount, every time I dropped everything to chase after her. What I discovered was terrifying. Her first apartment, at 18. I paid 3 months' deposit because she had no credit history. $2,400. First car. When her Toyota broke down and she said she needed a car for work, I financed a used Honda Civic. $15,000 that I was still paying off at the time. College graduation. When she decided to study law at a private university because public education didn't have the same prestige, I covered the difference that the student loan didn't pay. $22,000 over 4 years. The list went on. Car insurance when she crashed twice in the first year. Medical expenses when she didn't have health insurance. Furniture for the new apartment. Deposit for another apartment when she had a falling out with the first landlord. Money for English classes, for computer courses, to invest in her career. In the end, over the last 15 years, I had given or lent Jessica more than $80,000, and lent is a generous word, because in practice nothing was ever returned. $80,000, almost 3 times my annual salary. Money I took from my retirement savings, my own dreams, home renovations, and trips I never took. And what did I get in return? Calls only when she needed something. Christmas alone. A forgotten birthday. Father's Day marked by a generic text message. Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you. I love you. She said she loved me, but true love isn't something you demonstrate only with words. True love is demonstrated with presence, with interest, with reciprocity, and I hadn't received any of that from her in years. While I was doing these calculations, one thing became very clear in my mind. I wasn't Jessica's father. I was Jessica's sponsor, and she wasn't my daughter. She was my client. The difference is that customers at least pretend to be polite to those who pay their bills. I put that list in a drawer in my desk. I knew I'd need it soon, because one thing I was sure of, Jessica was going to call again. And when she called, she'd find out that Robert Bank had drastically changed its loan policies. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, my phone rang 8 times. 8. It was all Jessica. I let it ring. Each ring was like music to my ears, because I was finally seeing her desperation when she couldn't automatically count on me. On the 9th call, I answered. "Dad!" she yelled before I could even say anything. "Why aren't you answering? I'm desperate here." "Hi, Jessica. How are you?" How am I? How am I? Dad, I'm being evicted. The bailiff came here this morning. I have until tomorrow to pay the $5,000, or I'll have to leave the apartment. What a difficult situation. My voice was calm, almost cold. So, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? Dad, you're going to help me, right? You're my dad. Here it came again. The family connection card. As if being a father meant being an idiot. Jessica, answer me this. When was the last time you contacted me for something other than money? Dad, what kind of question is that? What time of day is it to be talking nonsense? Answer. Silence. A long, revealing silence. I don't know. But Dad, that doesn't matter now. Of course it matters. It matters because you said yesterday that my job is to help you. And I started thinking, is that really my job? Dad, you're talking nonsense. You're my father. Obviously, your job is to take care of me. And what is your role, Jessica? What is your role as a daughter? Another silence, an even longer one. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to think. In 15 years, how many times did you call me just to ask how I was doing? How many times did you come to visit me without needing anything? How many Christmases did you spend with me? Dad, please don't do this to me now. I'm desperate. And I spent 15 Christmases desperate too. Desperate to have a real daughter, not someone who only remembers I exist when she needs money. She started to cry. But it wasn't a cry of regret. It was a cry of frustration. The cry of someone who wasn't able to manipulate as she always had. Dad, you can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. If you're my daughter, where were you on my birthday? Where were you on Father's Day? Where were you for the last 15 Christmases? I had commitments. More important commitments than your father. That's not how it works. That's exactly right, Jessica. And you know what I discovered? A daughter who only shows up when she needs money isn't a daughter. She's a business partner. And that's when I said the phrase that changed everything. And I'm ending this partnership. The silence on the other end of the line lasted about 10 seconds that felt like an eternity. When Jessica finally spoke, her voice had completely changed. It was no longer despair, it was pure rage. You can't do this to me, Dad. You can't. I can, and I am doing it. I'm going to stay on the street. Do you want your own daughter to sleep on the street on Christmas Eve? Jessica, you're 33 years old. You're a qualified lawyer. You had 15 years to learn to fend for yourself, but you preferred to use me as a financial crutch. The problem isn't me. A crutch! I'm your daughter. And I am your father, not your financial slave. That's when she showed who she really was beneath all that manipulation. You're a stingy, selfish old man. You always have been. Mom always said you were miserly, that you didn't like spending money on anyone. My ex-wife, Sarah. Of course, she was going to throw that in my face. Sarah, who left me 12 years ago because she wanted freedom, but who always filled Jessica's head with nonsense against me. Your mother said that, didn't she? She said you've always been selfish, that you only thought about yourself. Interesting. The same mother who never paid a cent of her child support? The same mother who disappeared from your life for 3 years and only returned when you were already in college? Don't involve Mom in this. You're the one who got involved. And you know what's funny? In the last 15 years, I've spent more money on you than your mother spent in her entire life. But I'm the selfish one. Dad, please. Her voice changed again. Now it was pure manipulation. You know I love you. You're the most important person in my life. If I'm so important, why do you only call when you need money? That's not true. Jessica, out of the last 20 calls you made to me, how many were to ask for money? Silence again. All of them, right? Sometimes life gets hectic. Running for 15 years? Dad, for God's sake, I'm going to be homeless. And you'll learn to pursue your own solutions. It will be good for you. Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Actually, Jessica, I've never been so lucid in my life. And I hung up the phone again. This time I turned it off and unplugged it, because I was sure she would call back immediately. I sat in my armchair, looked out the window, and saw the snow beginning to fall outside. It was Christmas Eve, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. It was there that I realized that love has an expiration date, and mine had expired a long time ago. 3 days after Christmas, My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, thinking it might be work. Dad? It was Jessica, calling from another phone. What do you want, Jessica? Dad, I got a loan from a friend to pay the overdue rent. You don't need the $5,000 anymore. For a second, I almost thought she was calling to thank me for refusing to help, for forcing her to find a solution on her own. How naive. It's great that you solved your problem. But now I have another problem. Sure, there was always another problem. Which one is it now? My car broke down yesterday. The mechanic said it will cost $2,500 to fix, and I can't be without a car, Dad. I need the car to work. The audacity of that girl was astonishing. 3 days earlier, she had insulted me, called me selfish and petty, and said her mother was right about my character. And now she was there, asking for more money, as if nothing had happened. Jessica, you called me 3 days ago and yelled at me because I didn't want to give you $5,000. Dad, I was desperate. I said things I didn't mean to say. You understand, right? No, I didn't understand. What I did understand was that she thought she could treat me badly whenever she didn't get what she wanted, and then come back asking for a favor as if nothing had happened. And why do you think I'm going to help you now? Because you're my father, and because you know I need the car for work. Jessica, how many jobs have you had in the last 2 years? Dad, what kind of question is that? Answer. Some. The job market is tough. How many? 5. Maybe 6. In 2 years you had 6 jobs, and in all of them the problem was the bosses, right? It was never you. Those bosses were really bad, exploiters. Or perhaps you have difficulty keeping a job because you always knew you could count on me as a plan B. That's not true. Jessica, have you ever stopped to think about why your life never stabilizes? Why you're always in a financial crisis? Bad luck, I don't know. Things just don't work out for me. They don't work out because you never needed to make them work out. Whenever things got complicated, you called Dad to sort it out. Dad, you're being very unfair to me. It's unfair to have a father who sacrifices his own life to support his daughter's irresponsibility, and for that daughter to only call when she needs money. I am not irresponsible. Jessica, you're 33 years old and you can't go 3 months without needing your father's financial help. If that's not irresponsibility, I don't know what is. That's when she made the lowest move of all. You know what, Dad? You've changed. Ever since Mum left, you've become bitter. You're not the father I knew anymore. She was right. I wasn't the same father anymore. I had evolved. You're right, Jessica. I've changed. I've stopped being an idiot. And I hung up again. Spending Christmas alone was one of the best things that had happened to me in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't anxious, waiting for an emergency call that would ruin my day. I wasn't checking my phone every 5 minutes. I didn't have that nervous feeling of, what trouble has Jessica gotten herself into now? I made a small turkey just for myself. I watched the American football games I wanted to. I drank a bottle of wine I'd been saving for 2 years. And best of all, nobody called me asking for anything. But the real satisfaction came a few days later when my neighbor Carol told me something interesting. Robert, I saw a young woman outside your house yesterday, knocking on your door for about 15 minutes. Blonde, around 30 years old. Do you know who she was? Jessica. She came to my house and I wasn't even there. I had gone out to do the grocery shopping and she must have come when I wasn't home. She was probably my daughter. Ah, Jessica. I haven't seen her around here in a while. She seemed a little upset. She was banging on the door really hard, yelling, Dad, open this door, I know you're in there. The image of Jessica standing there at my door, screaming like a child throwing a tantrum, gave me a satisfaction I hadn't felt in a long time. Finally, she was experiencing a little of the frustration I'd felt for years every time she called me, acting like I was obligated to solve her life's problems. And how long did she stay there? About 20 minutes, more or less. Then she picked up the phone and started yelling at someone. Then she kicked her trash can and left. She kicked my trash can. My 33-year-old adult daughter kicked my trash can because she didn't get what she wanted. If I still had any doubts about doing the right thing, they've just disappeared. That night, while I was watching TV, my phone rang. Unknown number again. Hello? Dad, where were you this afternoon? Hi, Jessica. I'm out. Where did he go? Why do you want to know? Because I went there to see you and you weren't there. So what? So what? I drove 40 minutes to your house. Nobody ordered it. Dad, I went there because I needed to talk to you in person. About what? About you helping me with the car. Unbelievable. She was still insisting on the car. Jessica, I already told you I'm not going to help you. But Dad, without the car I can't work. Without work, I can't pay the bills. Then maybe it's time for you to rethink your priorities in life. What priorities? You're talking like I'm a bum. I didn't say you're a slut. I said maybe it's time for you to rethink your priorities. And what would be my right priorities, according to you? How about starting by being a real daughter instead of just being someone who shows up when you need money? Silence. How about you learn to solve your problems on your own? More silence. How about you call your dad once in a while just to see how he's doing, instead of only calling when you need something? You. How about you spend one Christmas with me instead of leaving me alone every year? Dad, These are your new priorities, Jessica. When you've accomplished them, we can talk about cars. And I hung up for the third time. A week after the car incident, I was watching TV on a Thursday night when someone started banging on my door. It wasn't a normal banging. It was an aggressive, insistent banging, the kind that wants to break the door down. I went over and looked through the peephole. Jessica was there, but she wasn't alone. She had a tall guy next to her, in his early 30s, whom I'd never seen before. I opened the door, but left the security chain closed. What do you want? Dad, open this door properly. I need to talk to you. Who is that with you? It's Brian, He's my boyfriend. Boyfriend? She'd never mentioned any boyfriend to me. But of course, why would she tell me? I was only good for paying the bills anyway. And what is he doing here? He came with me because you're not being reasonable. Someone needs to make you see how absurd what you're doing is. I removed the chain and opened the door, but I stood in front of it, blocking the entrance. Good evening, Mr. Coleman. Brian tried to be polite. I'm Brian Mitchell. Jessica has told me a lot about you. I'm sure he told her. He probably told her I was a terrible father who refused to help his own daughter. And what exactly did she say? Brian looked at Jessica, as if asking permission to speak. She told me that you're going through a difficult time, and that you might need help to see things more clearly. A difficult moment? Dad, Jessica interrupted, I explained to Brian that you've been acting strangely lately, that you've never been like this, and he agrees that maybe you should talk to someone. Talk to someone? A professional, Dad, to help you deal with what you're going through. She was suggesting I was crazy, that I needed a psychologist because I refused to continue supporting her lifestyle. Jessica, let me see if I understand. You brought your boyfriend to my house to tell me that I need psychological help because I don't want to give you money anymore. It's not just that, Dad. It's your whole attitude. You're different. You're aggressive. I've reached my limits. Mr. Coleman, Brian tried to speak again. I know you don't know me, but I care about Jessica, and that's why I care about the well-being of her family. And what's your opinion on the well-being of the family, Brian? I think families need to help each other, and when someone in the family needs help, the others should be there. And where was Jessica when I needed help? Brian seemed confused. For the past 15 years, I've spent every Christmas, every birthday, every Father's Day alone. I got sick with pneumonia in 2019 and spent a week in the hospital. Where was Jessica? Dad, I didn't know you were so sick. You didn't know because you didn't care to know. But I'm sure if I had called from the hospital offering money, you would have come running. That's when Brian messed up. Mr. Coleman, you have to understand that Jessica is a young, independent woman. She has her own life, her own commitments. And what am I? Her bank? No, sir. You are her father. And being a father means… Stop right there. My voice came out harsher than I intended. Brian, you've known me for 5 minutes. Don't come explaining to me what it means to be a father. After they left that night, I knew things weren't going to end there. Jessica was losing control of the situation, and people like her don't accept losing control easily. I was right. 3 days later, my sister Linda called me. Robert, what's this story Jessica's been telling about you? My heart raced a little. What story? She's saying you have mental problems, that you're treating her very badly, and that you refused to help her when she was almost evicted. And what else is she saying? That you've changed completely since Sarah left, that you've become bitter and resentful. Robert, is that true? Linda, you've known me for 58 years. Do I look mentally ill to you? No, you seem normal. But Robert, if your own daughter is saying these things… My own daughter hasn't spoken to me in 15 years except when she needs money. She doesn't even know how I am, how my life is going, if I'm sick or healthy. But Robert… Linda, answer me this. Did Jessica show up at any of the recent family gatherings? No, but in the last 5 Christmases you invited me to, did she go to any of them? She was always busy. And why do you think she's worried about me now? Linda was silent for a moment. Robert, she said you refused to help her when she was about to be evicted. Isn't that true? That's true. I refused. But why? She's your daughter. And then I had to explain 15 years of history to my own sister. The money I had already given Jessica. The Christmases spent alone. The calls that only came when she needed something. The total lack of reciprocity in the relationship. When I finished, Linda was silent for a few seconds. Robert, I didn't know anything about this. And because I never spoke up, because I was ashamed to admit that my own daughter only came to me when she needed money. And she's telling everyone that you're having problems? Apparently. This isn't right, Robert. I know it's not. But now I know what her game is. Jessica was trying to destroy me socially. If she couldn't manipulate me emotionally, she was going to try to isolate me, make everyone think I was crazy, that I was a terrible father. It was a clever move, and a dangerous one. But she made a mistake. She didn't know I had kept all the evidence from the last 15 years. Every bank statement showing the transfers to her, every email from her asking for help, every text message. If she wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. It wasn't hard to find out where Jessica was spreading lies about me. In a city the size of ours, information travels fast. Within 2 days, I knew exactly where she had planted the seeds of slander. First, she had spoken to Linda, my sister, telling her that I was having mental problems, and that I was treating her cruelly and irrationally. Later, she went to the church we attend, or at least I used to attend, and spoke with Mrs. Margaret, who is basically the official newspaper of the congregation. Jessica told her that she was worried about her father's mental state, and that I was acting strangely and hostilely. Lastly, and this is what annoyed me the most, she had called my boss, William, at the law firm where I work as a paralegal. She said it was a family emergency, that she was worried about me, and asked if he had noticed any strange behavior from me at work. Jessica was building a network of people I knew and respected, planting the seed that I had mental problems. The strategy was simple. If everyone thought I was crazy, when the truth came out, no one would take me seriously. Intelligent. Very intelligent. But she forgot one important thing. I was no longer the same man she knew. 15 years of being used as a personal bank teaches some valuable lessons about manipulation and strategy. I began my counterattack in a systematic way. First, I organized all the documentation. 15 years of bank statements showing regular transfers to Jessica, emails from her asking for financial help, text messages, even some phone calls that I had recorded on my cell phone, legal in our state as long as one of the parties knows they are being recorded. Then I made copies of everything and organized them into separate folders. One folder for each person she had contacted. Next, I scheduled individual conversations with each of these people. I started with William, my boss. I arrived at the office on a Monday morning and asked to speak with him privately. "William, my daughter called here last Friday." "Yes, she called Robert. She said she was worried about you and asked if I had noticed any change in your behavior." "And have you noticed any changes?" "No, you're normal. Maybe even better than normal, more relaxed." "William, can I show you something?" I placed the folder on his desk and opened it. I showed him the bank statements, emails, and messages. Over the past 15 years, I've transferred more than $80,000 to my daughter. And in that same period, she hasn't spent a single holiday with me. She didn't come to visit me when I was sick. She only calls me when she needs money. William leafed through the documents in silence. Jesus Christ, Robert. Last week, when I refused to give her another $5,000, she called me yelling, calling me stingy and selfish. And now she's telling everyone I have mental problems. Why didn't you ever tell me this? Because I was ashamed. What father is ashamed of his own daughter? William closed the folder and looked me in the eyes. "Robert, if anyone asks about you again, they'll know exactly what kind of person you are. And what kind of person your daughter is." One down. 2 more to go. With William by my side, I moved on to the next one. Mrs. Margaret, from the church. This one was going to be more difficult because Margaret is the type who believes that family is sacred, no matter what happens. And she had known Jessica since she was little. I arrived at her house one Tuesday afternoon with my briefcase under my arm. "Robert, what a pleasant surprise. Come in, come in." Margaret's house always smelled of cake and had that cozy, grandmotherly feel. She had me sit in her living room and offered me coffee and cookies. "Margaret, I need to talk to you about Jessica." Her face changed immediately. "Oh, Robert, I get so worried about you two. That girl is very distressed about you." "What exactly did she tell you?" "She said you've been acting very strangely lately, that you've been cruel to her, and that maybe you need professional help." "And what else?" "That you refused to help her when she was almost evicted." "Robert, that doesn't sound like you." "Margaret, how many years have you known me?" "About 20, since you started attending our church." "In these 20 years, have you ever seen me being cruel to anyone?" "No, never. You've always been a kind man." "And in those 20 years, how many times did you see Jessica at church?" Margaret thought for a moment. "Not many. She's always been kind of busy." "Margaret, in the last 10 years, Jessica has been to church exactly 3 times. Twice on my birthday, when I specifically asked her to go, and once at Christmas, 2019. "Ah, and do you know why she went those 3 times? Because all 3 times I had offered her something. One time it was a car, another time it was money for a trip, and the third time it was because I promised to help with the deposit for a new apartment." I opened my folder and started showing the documents to Margaret. At first she resisted. "Oh, Robert, this isn't necessary. I trust you." But I insisted. "Margaret, you need to see this because Jessica isn't just defaming me. She's using your faith. She's using the fact that you're a good person who believes in the best in people." I showed the bank statements, the emails, the messages. I explained the 15 years of financial manipulation, the Christmases spent alone, the total lack of reciprocity. When I finished, Margaret had tears in her eyes. "Robert, I didn't know. I had no idea. The lady had no idea because I was ashamed to speak, and because Jessica is good at playing the victim. That girl, how could she do that to you? It's simple, Margaret. Because she knew she could. Because I let her. And now? It's over now, and she doesn't like having to deal with the consequences of her choices." Margaret shook her head, still processing everything. "Robert, if anyone comes here to say anything about you, they're going to hear some home truths." 2 below. 1 was missing. Linda, my sister, was missing. And this was going to be the hardest of all, because Linda always had a special affection for Jessica. She always defended her, always thought I should have more patience with my daughter. But I had completely lost all patience, and Linda was going to find out why. Linda lived 20 minutes from my house, in a quiet residential neighborhood where she raised her own children. Unlike Jessica, Linda's children were a constant presence in her life. Sunday lunches, birthdays, holidays, a real family. I arrived there on a Thursday afternoon, unannounced. Linda was in the garden, tending to the flowers. "Robert, what a surprise. How are you?" "Everything's fine. Can we talk?" We went into her kitchen. Linda made tea and sat down at the table with me, with that worried expression she always had when she talked about my problems with Jessica. "Robert, have you been thinking about what we talked about regarding Jessica?" I walked, and that's exactly what I want to talk to you about. "That's good. I get so worried about you too." "Linda, before we continue, let me ask you a question. How many times has Jessica come to family gatherings in the last 5 years?" Robert, you know how she is. She's always busy." "How many times, Linda?" "Not many. 2, 3 times maybe." "Twice. She came twice in 5 years. And both times she left early because she had other commitments." "But Robert, and how many times in those same 5 years did she call me asking for money?" "Robert, that's beside the point. Yes, it's coming." I placed my folder on the table. "It's very relevant." I started showing everything to Linda. Every transfer, every email, every desperate message from Jessica asking for financial help. $80,000, Linda. $80,000 in 15 years. Linda stared at the papers with an expression of growing shock. "Robert, I didn't know it was that much. Look at this one." I showed him an email from 2 years ago. "Dad, I know I haven't talked to you lately, but I'm in a desperate situation. I need $3,000 by Friday, or I'll lose the apartment. Please don't let me down." And this one, another email, 6 months later. "Dad, the car broke down, and I need $2,000 to fix it. I know you'll help me because you're the best dad in the world." And this one, another one, from last Christmas. "Dad, I can't go to Aunt Linda's lunch because I have a commitment with Sarah's family, but Merry Christmas. I love you." Linda was growing pale as she read. "Robert, why didn't you ever tell me this?" "Because I was ashamed. Because I didn't want anyone to know that my own daughter only came to me when she needed money. But those things she said about you having mental problems, that's a lie, Linda. It's all a lie. She's doing this because, for the first time in her life, I said no. And she doesn't know how to deal with that." Linda closed the papers and looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It was a mixture of anger and disappointment. That girl, Robert, how could she have the courage? She had courage because she knew she could, because for 15 years I showed her that she could. And now? Now she's going to learn that there are consequences for everything in life, including using her own father. Linda shook her head. "Robert, if only I had known all of this." "What are you doing, Linda?" "I would never have told you that you should help her. Never. And now you know why I'm not going to help anymore." "Yes, now I know." 3 down. Now it was time for the final play. The perfect opportunity arose a week later. Linda called me to tell me she was having a birthday barbecue for her husband, and that she had invited all her extended family. Cousins, uncles, nephews. Everyone was going to be there. "Jessica confirmed she's going," she told me. "Great. I'll go too." "Robert, are you sure? After everything that's happened?" "I am absolutely certain. I spent the next 3 days preparing everything. I printed several copies of the most important documents. I organized a clear chronological presentation of 15 years of handling. I rehearsed in my head exactly what I was going to say. On Saturday, I arrived at Linda's house at 2 in the afternoon. The barbecue was already in full swing. There were about 20 people in the backyard, everyone chatting, drinking, and having a good time. Jessica was there, of course. She was in the center of a small group, apparently telling some story that made everyone laugh. When she saw me, her laughter died in her face. "Hi, everyone." I greeted everyone normally, grabbed a beer, and started chatting. Totally normal behavior. If anyone was expecting to see the mentally challenged Robert that Jessica had described, they were disappointed. After about 30 minutes, when everyone was relaxed and at ease, I positioned myself near the table where the cake was, a central spot where everyone could see and hear me. "Guys, can I talk to you about something?" The conversations dwindled until they stopped completely. I know some of you have heard stories about me lately, stories that I have mental problems, that I'm treating my daughter cruelly. There was total silence now. Everyone was looking at me, then at Jessica, then back at me again. So I wanted to take advantage of everyone being here to clarify things. Jessica tried to interrupt me. "Dad, this is neither the place nor the time for—" "Of course it's the right time and place, Jessica, since you found the right time and place to spread lies about me to that same family." I took a folder from my bag and started handing out copies of the documents. These are bank statements from the last 15 years. Every transfer I made to Jessica is marked in yellow. People started flipping through the papers, and I could see their expressions changing. $80,000, over 15 years. That's without counting gifts, furniture, apartment deposits, car repairs. "Dad, you can't." Jessica tried again. "And now look at this." I handed out copies of the emails and messages. These are all the times Jessica contacted me in the last 5 years. 15 emails, all asking for money. Uncle George, my father's brother, looked at the papers and then at Jessica with an expression of disbelief. "Jessica, is that true? You're not understanding the context." "The context," I continued, "is that in 15 years, my daughter hasn't spent a single Christmas with me. She didn't come to visit me when I was hospitalized with pneumonia. She hasn't called on my birthday in any of the last 5 years. But when she needed money, I picked up another piece of paper. She always knew my phone number." People were looking at Jessica as if they were seeing her for the first time. "Jessica," my cousin Helen said, her voice a mixture of disappointment and disgust. "You really only looked for your father when you needed money? It's not quite like that." Jessica was visibly nervous now. "You don't know the whole story. So tell us." Uncle George crossed his arms. "What's your version of the story?" "My father. He was always controlling. He used money to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty." "Manipulate how?" Linda asked. And I could tell from her voice that she didn't believe a word of it. He always threw it in my face that he was helping me. He always made me feel like I owed him something." "Jessica," I said calmly, "show me an email, a message, anything where I threw something in your face." She remained silent. "Show me one time that I used money to manipulate you." More silence. Actually, I picked up my phone. "Let me play something for you guys." It was a recording of the call she made at Christmas, when she called me selfish and petty. I put it on speakerphone. "You're a stingy, selfish old man. You always have been. Mom always said you were a miser, that you didn't like spending money on anyone." The silence in the backyard was awkward. Everyone was staring at Jessica, who was blushing with embarrassment. "And there's more," I continued playing. "Dad, look. You're my dad, right? That's your job, to take care of me, to help me when I need it." I stopped the recording. "According to my daughter, my role is to give her money. It's not about being respected. It's not about being loved. It's not about having a daughter present in my life. It's about giving money." Cousin Helen shook her head. "Jessica, that's disgusting." "You don't understand, Helen. I understand perfectly. You used your father for 15 years, and now you're trying to make him look crazy because he stopped letting you." Uncle George approached me. "Robert, why didn't you ever tell us this before?" "Because I was ashamed." What father is proud to say that his own daughter only talks to him when she needs money? And why are you telling me now? Because she wasn't content with just using me. She decided to try and destroy my reputation when I stopped being useful to her. Linda approached Jessica. Girl, how could you do this to your father? How could you spread lies about him around town? Aunt Linda, you don't understand. We understand perfectly, Linda's husband said. You're a gold digger. And now that you can't take advantage anymore, you've turned into a viper. Jessica looked around, searching for a friendly face, someone who could be on her side. She found none. I need to leave. Yes, I said. I think that's for the best. She ran, literally ran into Brian's arms, who was waiting in the car. After she left, Uncle George came to talk to me. Robert, we owe you an apology. Why? Because when she came to tell those stories about you, we believed her. We shouldn't have believed her without hearing your side of the story. That's fine, Uncle George. She's very good at what she does. She was, Linda corrected. She was good at what she did. Now everyone knows who she really is. And it was true. In one afternoon, Jessica had lost the respect of her entire extended family. 3 months after Linda's barbecue, I was having breakfast when the phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. Mr. Coleman, this is Patterson and Associates, a law firm. We are representing Ms. Jessica Coleman in an eviction matter. She told us that you are her father and that perhaps you could help us with some information. Eviction. It had finally happened. What kind of information? Well, Miss Coleman is facing significant financial difficulties, and she mentioned that you used to help her with these situations. She said there might be some misunderstanding between you two that could be resolved. There is no misunderstanding whatsoever. My daughter is a 33-year-old adult and needs to learn to handle her own responsibilities. Mr. Coleman, with all due respect, we are talking about a situation where your daughter could become homeless. So what? The lawyer remained silent for a few seconds, clearly surprised by my response. Mr. Coleman, she is your daughter, and she's an adult. If she can't pay her own bills, that's not my problem. Sir, she said that you have always helped her in the past. I used to be an idiot. I'm not anymore. I hung up the phone and went back to my coffee. An hour later, Jessica called me, sobbing. Dad, did you speak with my lawyer today? I spoke. And you said you weren't going to help me? Dad, I'm going to stay on the street. So what? So what? I'm your daughter. Jessica, you're going to have to find a solution on your own, just like adults do. But Dad, I have nowhere to go. Of course he does. He can go live with Brian. He lives with 2 roommates in a tiny apartment. Then you'll have to fend for yourselves. Dad, please, I promise I'll change. I promise I'll be a better daughter. It was interesting how now, when she was truly desperate, she was finally promising to be a better daughter. Not out of love, not out of conscience, out of necessity. Jessica, how many times have you promised me this? Sometimes. Every time you needed money. And how many times did you manage to pay? Silence. 0 times. Every time, after I helped you, you disappeared until the next emergency. This time it will be different. No, it won't. And do you know why it won't? Because you're not promising change because you want to have a better relationship with me. You're promising it because you need money. That's not true. Jessica, if I give you those $5,000 now, how long will it be before you call me again asking for something else? I am not going. How long? Dad, I swear. Answer. How long? She remained silent because she knew the answer. And I knew it too. 3 months, Jessica. In 3 months you were going to call me with another emergency, and I was going to be an idiot again. I was going to help you again, and you were going to disappear again. That's not true. That's true. And this time I won't be participating in this cycle. So you're going to let your own daughter stay on the street? I'll let a 33-year-old woman deal with the consequences of her own choices. And I hung up. 6 months passed in total silence. No calls, no messages, nothing. For the first time in 15 years, I lived half a year without any emergencies from Jessica, without any financial demands, without any drama. It was the best 6 months of my adult life. I renovated my kitchen with the money I would normally be sending to her. I traveled to visit my brother in Denver. I even started dating a co-worker, Susan, something I hadn't done in years because I was always worried about Jessica having some kind of crisis. Then, one Tuesday morning, someone knocked on my door. It was Jessica. But it wasn't the arrogant and demanding Jessica I knew. This Jessica was clearly a mess. Thin, with dark circles under her eyes, wrinkled clothes, unkempt hair. "Hi, Dad." "Hey, Jessica. May I come in?" I thought for a moment. Maybe. She went inside and sat on the sofa, looking around the house as if she were seeing everything for the first time. The kitchen turned out beautifully. "Thanks. Dad, I came to apologize." Interesting. In 15 years, this was the first time I'd heard her apologize for anything. "Why are you sorry?" "For everything. For using you. For being a horrible daughter. For spreading lies about you." "And what happened to make you reach that conclusion?" She took a deep breath. "The last 6 months have been the worst of my life." "Like this?" "After I was evicted, I went to live with Brian. But his apartment was really tiny, and we started arguing all the time. After 2 months, he kicked me out. And there? Then I went to live with my mom. Sarah, my ex-wife, who always criticized my lack of generosity towards Jessica." "And how was it?" Jessica gave a bitter laugh. "It lasted 3 weeks. Mom kept charging me for rent, groceries, cleaning. And when I asked her for a loan, she laughed in my face." "Did she laugh?" "She said, 'Jessica, I'm not your father. I have no obligation to support your life.'" How ironic. The same Sarah who always criticized me for not giving Jessica enough money refused to help her own daughter for 3 weeks. And then what? Then I went to live with Helen, my cousin. But she made it very clear to me that it was temporary. And she gave me a speech about personal responsibility that hurt more than anything you've ever said. "What speech?" "She said I was a disgusting gold digger, that I had used the best father in the world until he got tired of me, that I didn't even deserve to be called his daughter. Helen has always been straightforward. And now? Now I'm living in a rented room with 3 other girls. I work as a waitress in a cheap restaurant. I don't have a car. I take the bus." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Dad, for the first time in my life I understand what it's like to have nowhere to turn. And I understand that you were my support for 15 years. And I treated that as if it were an obligation. Continue. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I needed to come here and say that I know I was wrong. That I was terribly wrong." I stood there in silence for a few minutes, just looking at her. "Jessica, do you want me to forgive you?" "I forgive you." She began to cry with relief. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were before. The crying stopped. "Jessica, let me explain to you the difference between forgiveness and idiocy." She straightened up on the sofa, wiped her eyes, and looked at me with complete attention. "Forgiveness means that I won't hold a grudge against you. It means that I acknowledge that you regretted it and that perhaps you learned something from all of this. And idiocy. It would be idiotic for me to go back to being your plan B. It would be idiotic for me to pretend nothing happened and go back to supporting your life." "Good. Let me finish. You said you understood that I was your support for 15 years. But you still don't understand that true support isn't about solving someone's problems. True support is about helping someone become capable of solving their own problems. But you always helped me. I always gave you money. That's not help, Jessica. That's dependency. I turned you into a dependent person, incapable of taking care of yourself. She remained silent, processing it. If I really wanted to help you all these years, I should have said no from the beginning. I should have let you learn to deal with your own difficulties. So, you're never going to help me again? I'm never giving you money again. That phase is over. But what if I'm really in an emergency? Jessica, for the past 15 years, all your emergencies were a consequence of your own bad choices. You chose bad jobs, expensive apartments you couldn't afford, toxic relationships, unnecessary expenses, and every time those bad choices led to consequences, you called me to clean up the mess. But Dad, and what did that teach you? It taught you that you didn't need to be careful about your choices because there was always someone to solve things. She looked at the ground. Now you're experiencing the real consequences of your own decisions for the first time. And you know what I see? I see that you are perfectly capable of taking care of yourself. You got a job. You got a place to live. You're paying your own bills. It's been very difficult. It's supposed to be hard, Jessica. Adult life is hard, and the only way you'll become a real adult is by facing this difficulty alone. And what about our relationship? What happens to it? Our relationship can be rebuilt, but on a completely different basis. Like this? If you want to have a father, you'll have to learn to be a daughter, a real daughter. And what does that mean? It means calling every now and then just to ask how I am. It means remembering my birthday. It means spending at least one holiday a year with me. It means treating me like someone you love, not like a bank you use. And if I do that, will you come back to help me? And there was the revealing question. Even after everything, she was still thinking in transactional terms. Jessica, if you do this, you'll find you'll never need my financial help again, because you'll have learned to help yourself. But what if one day I really need it? If one day you really need to, and if you've been a true daughter for a considerable amount of time, we can talk. But it's not a promise. It's a possibility. And how do I know you'll truly forgive me? You'll know when you stop thinking of my forgiveness as a way to regain access to my money. 3 years have passed since that conversation. Jessica kept her word. She really has changed. It didn't change overnight, of course. In the beginning, I could sense that she was still trying to be a good daughter, more than actually being one. But over time, the connections became more natural. The visits became more spontaneous. The conversations stopped revolving around money. She got a better job at a law firm. She rented a small but decent apartment that she pays for herself. She broke up with Brian and started dating a guy named David who, from what I know, seems like a nice person. Last Christmas, for the first time in 15 years, she spent the whole day with me. She arrived in the morning, helped make lunch, and stayed until night watching movies. She didn't ask for money, didn't talk about financial problems, and did nothing but be my daughter. And on my birthday this year, she gave me a gift that made me cry. It was a photo album of her as a child, with a dedication that read, "To the best dad in the world." Sorry it took me so long to realize. Susan, who is now my wife, always says that she has never seen a family rebuild itself the way ours has. The Jessica of today is a completely different person from the Jessica I met 3 years ago, she told me last week. And it's true. The Jessica of today works, supports herself, makes her own decisions, and deals with the consequences herself. She calls me because she wants to talk to me, not because she needs something. She visits me because she misses me, not because she has a favor to ask. In other words, she finally learned to be my daughter instead of my client. And me? I learned that true love sometimes means saying no, that helping someone isn't the same as solving their problems. That respect isn't something you automatically give to family. It's something you earn with your actions. I also learned that it's never too late to set boundaries. That you can love someone and at the same time refuse to be used by that person. That forgiveness is possible, but forgiveness doesn't mean going back to being an idiot. Last week, Jessica called me to tell me she had been promoted at work. During the call, she said something that stuck with me. "Dad, thank you for teaching me to stand on my own 2 feet." Like this? When you stopped giving me money, at first I hated you. I thought you had become cruel and selfish. But now I understand that it was the greatest act of love you ever did for me. Why do you think that? Because you forced me to discover that I am capable of taking care of myself. And that is the most valuable thing someone can teach another person. It was at that moment that I knew our family had truly been rebuilt. Not on the old foundation of dependence and manipulation, but on a new foundation of mutual respect and true love. Because true love isn't about giving the person everything they ask for. It's about giving them what they need, even when they don't want it. After my story spread through family and friends, I started receiving calls from other parents going through similar situations. Parents who were being financially exploited by their own children and didn't know how to deal with it. My neighbor Tom contacted me last month. Robert, my 28-year-old son, still lives with me and doesn't pay anything. He doesn't help with the bills. He doesn't help with the house. He does nothing but play video games and ask me for money. My wife says I have to kick him out, but he's my son, you understand? Tom, let me ask you a question. How long has he been like this? About 5 years, since he finished college. And why would he continue looking for a job if he already has a house, food, and free money? But he's my son. Exactly. He's your son. And your responsibility as a father is to prepare him for adulthood, not to protect him from adulthood. Margaret from church told me that she has a 35-year-old daughter who calls every week asking for money for emergencies that aren't really emergencies. Robert, she says it's for groceries, but I know it's for spending on junk. But how can I deny my daughter food? Margaret, if she really didn't have money for food, she would cut back on unnecessary expenses, don't you think? Yeah, that makes sense. What I've learned, and what I always tell these parents, is that there's a huge difference between being a loving parent and being an idiot parent. A loving father teaches responsibility. A foolish father assumes his son's responsibilities. A loving father sets boundaries. A foolish father is afraid of displeasing others. A loving father prepares his son for the real world. A foolish father protects his son from the real world. A loving father wants his son to be independent. A foolish father prefers to keep his son dependent. And the most important thing I learned, you're not helping your child when you solve all their problems. You're hurting them, because in the real world, nobody is going to solve his problems. In the real world, he's going to have to learn to fend for himself. And the longer you delay that learning process, the harder it will be for him. Jessica is 36 years old today. If I had continued supporting her financially, she would be exactly where she was at 33, dependent, irresponsible, and unable to support herself. But because I had the courage to say no, she learned to say yes to her own life. If you are a parent, and you recognize yourself in this story, I have some advice for you. Have the courage to love your child enough to let them grow up. Stop solving his problems. Stop giving him money. Stop protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. And most importantly, stop feeling guilty about it. Because guilt is what manipulative children use to control kind-hearted parents. And you are not responsible for your adult child's happiness. You are responsible for teaching them the tools to build their own happiness. If you did that, you fulfilled your role as a father. The rest is up to him. Looking back, I see that the best decision I ever made was to turn off my phone that Christmas. It wasn't the easiest decision, it wasn't the most popular decision, but it was the right decision. Because sometimes, loving someone means doing the thing that will hurt the most in the short term, but will help the most in the long term. Jessica is now an independent, responsible woman who has a healthy relationship with me and with life itself. And that would never have happened if I had continued to be her personal bank. But this story taught me something even more important. Family isn't blood. Family isn't DNA. Family is behavior. People who respect you, who care about you, who are present in your life, not just when they need something. Those are your true family. And people who only show up when they need a favor, who treat you like a resource instead of a person, who manipulate you emotionally. Those people aren't family. They're parasites. And parasites need to be removed from your life, even when they share your last name. Today I have a real family. I have Jessica, who has finally learned how to be a daughter. I have Susan, who loves me for who I am, not for what I can give her. I have friends who truly care about me, and I have something I haven't had in a long time. Peace. Peace comes from knowing that no one is using me. Peace comes from knowing that the people around me are there because they want to be, not because they need something. If you're going through a situation similar to what I went through, if you have someone in your family who only shows up when they need a favor, let me give you the best advice I can. Have the courage to press the reset button. Have the courage to set boundaries. Have the courage to say no. Have the courage to demand respect. If the person truly loves you, they will learn to respect you. And if they don't learn, you'll discover that they never truly loved you in the first place. Arrogance has an expiration date, and so does manipulation. But dignity, that lasts forever. And speaking of family manipulation, you won't believe the story I heard last week. A man supported his brother-in-law for 10 years, and when he stopped helping, his brother-in-law tried to rob his house. But that's a story for another day. If you enjoy stories about family justice, write in the comments, "I will never be used again." And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it. Because everyone deserves to know that true love has to be reciprocal. And any family that doesn't respect you doesn't deserve your sacrifice. That was the lesson that cost me $80,000 and 15 years of my life to learn. But it was worth every penny and every tear. Because today I know exactly what I'm worth. And I won't accept anything less than I deserve. From no one. And speaking of ungrateful children who don't appreciate their parents' sacrifices, you need to hear the story that's playing on your screen right now. A father worked himself to the bone to make a perfect Christmas dinner for his son, and the boy mocked his effort in front of everyone. The response? He donated all the presents his son was expecting. If you thought my story was harsh, just wait until you see what this father did. Click here and discover how he taught his son a lesson he'll never forget.